Right, let's get started. Welcome everyone to Under 30 and Over It. We're going to get into it today with three people under 30 who are making massive waves in their communities here in New Jersey. My name is Hannah Katz, and I'm the New Jersey Program Manager at Rebuild by Design. We have a really, really exciting event here today with our guests to talk about organizing, recent updates, and ways you can get involved and join the movement. And today, we're really expecting a lot of talking and engagement and activity. So you're going to be able to answer questions yourself in the chat and get the tea from speakers today firsthand. So if you're relaxing at home, on the road, watching this recording afterwards, we hope you enjoy and chime in with your wisdom, concerns, or ideas in the comments and the chat box. If you're over 30, that's okay. This event is for people of all ages to attend and participate in, and we appreciate you joining us to hear the voice of the next generation. And if you're here today from another state, thank you as well for joining because the things we're going to talk about here today will hit home for anyone regardless of where you are and where you're from. Today is going to be really about solutions and highlighting a path to progress. So we want you to write to us throughout this panel in the comments and the chat because we want to hear your thoughts as well. And just a few housekeeping rules before we get started. Please keep your mics muted and use the chat to ask us questions. We're going to go through our questions that are pre-made first, and then read aloud your written questions that you put in the chat. Please don't unmute the mic unless called on to help us keep a cool, respectful, and engaging vibe in here. Now, before I let our distinguished guests introduce themselves, I'd like to introduce Rebuild by Design very briefly. If you've lived here during Sandy or experienced a disaster firsthand, you saw how climate disasters can impact people of all ages for generations. It interrupts your education, your accessibility to your resources, your jobs, your investments, your family stability and happiness, and so on. Hurricane Sandy caused the destruction of over 650,000 homes in our area, and we're still paying for it. And as our generation grows up, we are still feeling the expenses from it as new time taxpayers. Other disasters today are still costing us as well, and we can see that states don't always have the funding to rebuild after a disaster or to build up thoughtfully before a disaster. So at Rebuild by Design, we're a team of individuals who work together to help communities solve complicated, multidimensional problems like climate change, flooding, and environmental injustices. And we're really driven by a sense of urgency that we need to figure out how to build smarter and better for our quality of life now and for future generations. So the original 2012 initiative provided funding for the projects for many projects in the affected region to make sure that this never happens again to communities. And two of the projects are currently underway in New Jersey that you can visit, one in Hoboken and one in the Meadowlands. Both are under construction with portions already completed. Young people in New Jersey today, whether you grew up in a city or in the suburbs or in rural areas, we're dealing with no shade, air and water pollution, and neglected infrastructure in our public spaces. And all of us feel the stress of not having good public transportation, and many of us do not live in walkable spaces. So seeing projects like this inspire me for the future because I've always dreamed of a New Jersey that made more sense, where infrastructure was built with co-benefits for local residents and society as a whole. So these parks are incredible because they're not just conservation spaces for biodiversity and plant life, but they provide us all with fresh air, shade, a place to hang out, exercise, and now flood prevention and resilience. Every park can become more like this if we start promoting proactive solutions to get this done. Like Northwest Resiliency Park in Hoboken. It's become a patch of life and space for those gathering for the public. So if you've ever visited one of the Rebuild by Design parks, please send us your feedback, your photos to info@rebuildbydesign.org. We would love to hear from you and see how people are using it because people are doing things from photo shoots to birthday parties to dance classes and just relaxing at these parks. Um, I have a number of resources to share with you today that we're going to put into the chat, such as the New Jersey homepage for Rebuild by Design and our tools. Today, we've developed into an organization that continues to uphold these causes by promoting the construction of more projects like the ones you just saw and doing the research for you to be equipped with the data that you need to advocate for yourself, your community and help improve the resilience of your community. So when you get a chance, check out the Atlas of Accountability on our website. You can look up your address, county, or zoom in with your mouse, with your fingers, to find your state packet and county by county info. What we found was that 95.5% of counties and 99% of congressional districts have experienced a federal disaster declaration for a major weather event since 2011. And no matter where you've lived across the United States, whether you're Republican, Democrat, rural, urban, we're all suffering from climate change. So in these uncertain times for disaster prevention programs, we're using the Atlas of Accountability to connect us directly with elected officials and ask them, what are they doing about it? Um, and I'm briefly just going to go over this, and then we'll get to the rest of our event. But I wanted to show you all that when you look up your state or county or area, you will find a state packet that has a number of county-specific and state-specific pieces of data that is very useful for you to use at home. Um, so you can see here in New Jersey, we've gotten assistance 14 times from the federal government due to extreme weather like hurricanes and tropical storms, and every single county has faced at least 5 or more disasters. We spent over $8 billion in federal post-disaster assistance funds, and Morris County has experienced the highest number of disaster declarations. So, talking about solutions, Rebuild by Design is proposing a $3 billion resilient infrastructure investment that takes the money that we spend and makes it work for us for long-term benefits that protect communities and create jobs. We found that 76% of New Jerseyans support a $3 billion resilient infrastructure fund to make communities more resilient to extreme weather events. So please check that out when you get a chance. There's the QR code. I know you guys all know how to use QR codes. If you don't, open your camera, hold it over the QR code, and press it with your finger, and it'll help you open it up. And now, without further ado, I'm going to go to the reason why you all came here today and decided to spend your evening with us. I'd like to introduce you to our panelists who will each introduce themselves. First up, we have Oriana Holmes-Price. Oriana?
Thanks, Hannah. It's so nice to be on here with all of y'all. Super quick spiel on who I am and who the New Jersey Environmental Justice Alliance is. We are a group of organizations from across New Jersey, really focused on supporting our low-income, Indigenous communities of color across the state in really addressing and fighting back against environmental injustice in all of its many forms, whatever that looks like. 9 times out of 10, it's a polluting facility that we're, pulling permits for, going to hearings, figuring out what the heck they're up to and why they're damaging our communities and our public health. We are really like the connective tissue between communities on the ground across the state and resources, whatever that looks like for them. We do a lot of technical assistance, capacity building, just being that connective tissue for whatever resources folks need. If it's even just having a communication or dialogue with their local legislator or other organizations that can provide resources, we are really just that arm for them to be able to leverage whatever resources they need to address whatever environmental injustice is plaguing their community that they are seeking immediate resolution on. So that's a little bit about the Alliance. We are based up in Newark. We've been around for the last 23 years. We're statewide, so always everywhere all the time. I'm the director of organizing with them, so I am the one who's always kind of going across the state, talking with folks and really understanding how we can support them. And all of our work is guided by the James principles for democratic organizing, which is really focused on a bottom-up approach to organizing. So our direction 9 times out of 10 is taken from the community in terms of which policies we focus on, how we prioritize our work, and the areas of work that we do, which are related to the goods movement at large with ports and warehouses, air pollution, energy. We're moving into like healthy homes and building decarbonization right now, which is really exciting. Thinking a lot about agriculture, urban ag, farming at large. and doing some more work around like water infrastructure and things like that. So we dabble in a little bit of everything, but most of our work, 9 times out of 10, is going to come back to air pollution and energy. And the EJ principles are really what guides all of our work around EJ. And those are principles that are really centered around making sure that those who are most impacted by environmental injustice remain at the center of our work. And so that's how we develop our base of communities that we work with and figure out, who we're going to talk to and when, but we really are a resource for everyone across the state to be able to tap into. And you can go to the next slide. And so this is just a nice map that I like to show from New Jersey DEP on the overlay of our overburdened communities across the state, and then all of the different stressors and facilities that exist. And what this map really shows is a very close link between the lightly tinted blue area of New Jersey. Those are our overburdened communities, which are defined by 3 pieces of criteria that are outlined on the left-hand side of this slide. So those communities need to meet at least one piece of the criteria, being 35% of the households qualifying as low income, 40% of the residents identifying as a minority or a member of a state recognized tribal community, or 40% of the households having limited English proficiency. And this is all based on census data. So this map could look a little different when the next census is done. But it really helps to kind of visualize and see the ways in which our very vulnerable communities across the state are burdened by pollution, and how we at the Alliance are working mainly with folks in these communities to address all of the pollution that they are being exposed to in one way or another. And all of that goes to our work around just environmental justice at large, wanting to make sure that folks across the state, but definitely our front and fence line communities, have access to life-affirming resources, clean water, clean air, transportation, healthy foods, medical infrastructure, all the things, you name it, climate resiliency. We want to make sure that everyone has access to that meaningfully and equitably, and that at the end of the day, every community has the opportunity to move towards self-determination and full autonomy. So in a very ideal world, a lot of these communities across the state would be able to speak up and say, no, we don't want any more polluting facilities in our community. We need to have, more climate resiliency. We need to make sure we have green space, community sovereignty really at the heart of it all. So yeah, that's a little bit like quick spiel about the Alliance, and then I can get into more of the nitty gritty on our work and what I'm kind of up to on the day-to-day in the Q&A.
Thank you, Oriana. And now we're going to go on to introducing Ben Dziobek from Climate Revolution Action Network.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ben Dziobek. I'm the Executive Director of Climate Revolution Action Network. This is just some words on the side of the screen, so feel free to read it or not. Look, I am grateful that over the past few years, youth organizers around the state have stood up, and you see some of them here, and really made a space for themselves within this work. And that is the majority of what we do at Climate Revolution Action Network. Climate Revolution, climate, and everything that touches it, right? So that's like, equity and coming at things from revenue raising lenses through progressive tax reform that can really aid the environment and the overburdened communities who need it most, but also making sure that we can directly get you into this space. And we're so glad to be taking on the Make Polluters Pay Climate Superfund Act bill, but so many other things, whether it be water infrastructure and AI and energy usage, to on-the-ground work in communities to fight for preservation of land in North Jersey, South Jersey, anywhere in between. And then we also do a lot of the digital work that you probably see on your feed. Instagram, TikTok, rapid response, all of that, working with our design and graphic team, and it's a lot of fun. I think there's a next slide. Yeah. So we did the name, right? But let's do our little four words here. Uplift. We want to get young people into this space. 20-year-olds, 18-year-olds, high schoolers have the ability to do the work that we're doing. We just need to provide them some grounding of their work, a home for them to do it, and reassurance that they can, right? Coordinate. There's a lot of stuff going on right now. I don't know about you guys, but it's kind of like an onslaught of information. So through our digital organizing, we really do try to make sure information is really consistent and breaking down what's going on, but also bringing young people together in our coordination meetings to do work, and to just have everyone on the same page. Organize. Like we need to be on the ground and taking action. Uh, Webinars and Zoom meetings are really fantastic, and we can get ideas going here. But it is on all of you who came to this webinar today to take some of these things and get to work in your local communities to get things actually done. And the only way you get to the done part is by repeating steps 1 through 3 a trillion times. And I am excited to be on this webinar today and to talk a little bit more about that.
Very wise words from Ben Dziobek. Thank you so much, Ben. And now we're going to go to Jasmine Metellus. Jasmine, you here with us?
Hi, everyone. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Good evening, everybody. First and foremost, I do want to thank you so much to Hannah for inviting me to be a panelist. I'm so excited to be here with all of you tonight virtually. I'm Jasmine Metellus. I am the Politics and Government Relations Manager for New Jersey League of Conservation Voters, known as LCV. So LCV is the statewide political voice for the environment. And pretty much in my job title, I work a lot with elected officials. So I feel like I kind of pretty much focus on how do we make sure that elected officials are held accountable, and how do we also ensure that we're bringing new candidates into the space that are actually making the environment a top priority. A lot of the time, and just tell you a little bit about my background, prior to joining LCV, I actually was in the legislature. I worked in both houses, both in the Senate and the Assembly. I also served as the president for Essex County Young Democrats. And from there, just combining all of my experiences, one of the challenges I really come across is that unfortunately, elected officials are just not aware of what is going on in the environmental space. A lot of them just probably know like the basics such as flooding and stormwater, but it goes a lot deeper than that, right? Like we need to talk about open space, we need to talk about warehouses. Unfortunately, offshore wind is on a pause right now. A lot of people don't even understand the reason why our energy costs are going up right now. And that's where I come in and I bridge that gap. So making sure that elected officials do have the resources and the accessibility and the support that they need, because a lot of the time they run for office, they get money, and then I don't want to say they forget about their constituents, but in a way, they have a hard time trying to make sure that both sides of who they're trying to please actually makes sense and everybody can come to the table and be friends. But you know, when we play in the sandbox, it could be a little bit complicated. A lot of my work does focus on our endorsement process, so I can go a little bit more into that. Our endorsement process is very rigorous, so you do have to apply for it, and then you're invited to a candidate interview with me for about 45 minutes, sometimes an hour, and then it goes up to our C4 board and our political committee that make a vote on it. Staff, such as myself and others, do not have any say so. So that already just shows you how much we seriously do take our endorsement process. And we're not just name only, we do want to make sure that we invest into our endorsees and that we're also building up the bench. To Ben and Oriana's point too, we don't want to just leave people and just like advocate and like, okay, we're just doing this bill one time. We want to make sure that we're progressively always actively working on issues, because unfortunately, as we know, it's always an issue in the environmental space, but just ensuring that people do have that resource to make sure that they're moving on to the next goal. So that's a little bit about me, and I'm excited to be on the panel tonight.
Incredible. We are in the presence of greatness right now. Really, these three speakers combined are really making huge. I didn't even want to say waves. They're making tsunamis in New Jersey, and in the best possible way. And so, what I would love to do now is to give you all each of you a bit of an opportunity to give us a small blurb on what you've been working on lately. If you can pick one thing and give us like a couple of sentences to update us. I know you guys all have very busy lives, but tell us what's been up. Give it like each of you like 2 minutes. Um, Oriana, you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah. I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, all the things we've been working on. I would say right now the biggest thing for NJEJA that we are working on is the implementation of the New Jersey Environmental Justice Law. So as many of you probably know, that law was passed back in 2020, but we're going through the full implementation now. What does this actually look like in practice? What does it look like to be working in tandem with both the Department of Environmental Protection and the facilities that are either coming up for permit renewal or, bless you, Jasmine, that are either coming up for permit renewal or are seeking a new permit? And what does that mean for the communities that would be most impacted? So the EJ law is really focused on uh, almost like adding an extra layer of protection for our existing overburdened communities across New Jersey that I had showed on the map in my slides. And this law really provides the DEP with the opportunity to either deny new permits or put conditions on permit renewals. And so right now there's a few hearings happening across the state. There's actually one happening right now tonight in Rahway that covers like the Rahway Linden area and some other surrounding communities. There was one last week in Vineland. There's one coming up in Kearney and another in Ewing in December. So they'll be happening a little bit more frequently. Definitely like stay plugged in like to all of our work. You can sign up on our website for our newsletter to know when that's happening. But those are really great opportunities for community members to turn out and share their lived experiences in a frontline fence line community with polluting facilities. Understand, what do these permit processes look like, really have a front seat in the decision-making process. And then also to just share really candidly, like we were all saying, especially Jasmine, government is so far removed from the people. So this is, a really great opportunity for folks to really share how they want to see facilities in their community either operating or not. And so yeah, that's really like the big thing that we're working on. We are also working on some clean energy right now. I'm planning a clean energy like forum for South Jersey to kind of round out the year in December. So be on the lookout for that. Emails will be going out very soon. And then a whole host of work that we're doing up in Bayonne around ports and with some other communities, North Bergen, Camden, things like that, Paulsboro, Salem City. So kind of like a statewide like ports campaign that we're doing. So yeah, it's a lot going on, but yeah, I'll stop there.
I'm just turning off the thing so that we can just like see our faces. Cool. Okay. Sorry about that. Great. Great. If you could plug that into the chat while we have our next panelists talk about what they got going on, that'd be great.
Sure.
Thank you. All right, Ben, you want to go next and let us know what you've been working on?
Yeah, sure. Let it rip. And I think I'm going to keep it in. Let's assume that the three people here are doing way too much and have no concept of where they are most of the time. Okay. I'm going to hit you with a few wins because I think we need that, right? So for about a year and a half, young people have been working down in South Jersey at Black Run Preserve to fight for about 1,000 acres of land, right? This area is contiguous with the current Black Run Preserve that's managed by the Friends of Black Run Preserve. It's so fantastic. It's the headwaters of the Rancocas Creek that bubbles up from the Kirkwood Cohansey, which is the entirety of South Jersey. And it also provides 13% of the drinking water for Philadelphia, so about 17 trillion gallons. The aptly named development company, Devel LLC, did decide to come in and bulldoze a lot of this to replace it with 124 single-family homes, which in the Pinelands, in the heart of all of this, kind of sucks. And through targeted media campaigns that have sent thousands of letters, done by 20-year-olds, right? Op-eds, meeting with legislators, filling up local meetings for the Pinelands Commission and local town council. The Pinelands Commission, the overarching entity over the Pinelands, has moved to change its comprehensive master plan in its last meeting to change Black Run from a rural development zone to a Pinelands forested area. So really big win, right? I always say we're right there, right? Home rule, we still have to push Evesham, but the big guns already said, hey, let's do this. So it just basically confirms we're on our way and we'll get this done, right? The next big win is we're fighting something. I know a lot of development stuff I'm hitting you with, but why not? We're fighting up in North Jersey. The billionaire owner of the Minnesota Vikings is trying to build a 500 unit skyscraper, whatever, on the top of the second Watchung Ridge, which is the last unpreserved ridge of the Watchung Mountains. This is native land that the Lenni Lenape has actually, the wife of the chief has come out and mapped all those markings on GIS software. But more so, it lacks water infrastructure. The ridge is susceptible to collapse, right? There's been tons of flooding in the Saddlebrook and everything that is around it. There's been wildfires. I could go on and on. But we've teamed up with the team on the ground that's fighting that legal campaign to run comms and get people fired up and run rallies. And a lot of success there. But this week, the Essex County Board of Commissioners has unanimously voted to preserve that area. We're back in home rule territory, but once again, we have a win step forward, and that's all we do in our work, right? And I'll finally say is that we've been doing our college tour, and I think we've only missed Montclair and Ryder's next week, and Jazz is going to help me with Montclair. And so this is an organizing training that we've taken to literally every campus, and it is really awesome to see, if 10 people to 15 people show up, I'm smiling. If 30 to 40 people show up, I'm smiling. Because if you look at that across all these schools, if we can equip 150 to 200 people on the organizing 101 and how to do and think through some of these things that we have to battle with every day, I think we can build a stronger environmental community in New Jersey. So I call that a win. And let's remember to vote on November 4th. I think we're all working for that. But I will and pass it over to Jess.
Beautiful.
Yes. To Ben's point, please, if you have not, actually, matter of fact, if you don't vote by mail, this weekend, early voting begins. This weekend, I will be voting on Saturday. I love early voting. I don't really like voting on election day because I feel like it gets a little too hectic. If anybody remembers last year, Burlington County, that whole crazy of a mess. Unfortunately, a lot of people, I don't know if they ended up even getting to vote, but that's why I say early vote. Just get it out the way. It takes a week. You have time. But to Ben's point, I feel like although most of my work does intersect with the environment, I really do focus on the importance of elections and why democracy matters. So with that said, I know I had talked a little bit about like the biggest part of my job, which is endorsements. If all of you are interested, we did endorse about 120 candidates this year, both on the state and local level. Hannah, if you can drop it, our website, feel free to. I could drop it later too. Not only do we make sure that we have endorsements, but I also wanted to mention that we have what we call our scorecard. So a lot of the time when I talk about like the work that I do and I say like, oh yeah, we hold elected officials accountable, right? And I think a lot of advocacy organizations can say that in general, but specifically with LCV, we actually give you like a report card. Like we show constituents how their legislator voted. And actually, our scorecard just released this past Monday. So feel free to take a look how your legislator had voted on those environmental bills. And not only do we focus on the environment, we also do focus on democracy work. So as all of you may know, voting rights is under attack. We see what's going on in Louisiana, and not even just beyond voting rights, but we also just see what's going on in other states such as in Illinois, right in Chicago, and then we also see what's going on in Memphis, Tennessee. It looks like a war zone genuinely because these elected officials are not actually taking a stance. And in 13 days, God willing, Mikey Sherrill and Dr. Dale Caldwell will be our next governor and lieutenant governor because we see what is at stake and we even see what's in danger with the environment. First of all, Trump is trying to get rid of the EPA. Like, he's trying to get rid of that. Funding is basically being demolished. And we see it across the board how offshore wind has been affected in our state. And hopefully it's just a pause and it doesn't just stop completely. But a lot of it is just making sure that the elected officials do understand what is on the line. And I think, especially when it comes down to the scorecard, a lot of the bills that we focus on, not only just democracy work, but we focus a lot about water, open space, warehouses, so on and so forth. And we work alongside a lot of different partners, just making sure that we're ensuring the best scorecard to be. Most of our elected officials, I want to say, scored about like a 92%. It's probably like one or two bills that they did not do so well on. But overall, we just want to make sure that, you know, we're keeping an eye out. And not only do we have a pivotal race for governor, very important, but I also want to say the legislature, all 80 seats are up. These seats are up for grabs. And I do want to say, especially significantly in South Jersey, and again, as I mentioned, I'm from Essex, so like learning about South Jersey in my work has been super pivotal. I want to say South Jersey is also a huge battleground for how this election will go. So just to really mention, I want to say pay attention to LD3, 4, 8, 11, 16, and 38. Those are the battleground legislative districts that we may see they could possibly flip. We have no idea. But please do not sit out this election. I pray that you all make sure that your voice is heard because this is time to do so. And I know at this point in time, especially Trump, it's only been like 10 months. He's done so much damage. But I always like to remind people, although this is all happening at the federal level, the states at this point in time, we still have our rights. And if you don't end up voting, you know, if you think about if you end up either sitting out this election or if you vote for the other party, not judging, but if you end up voting for the other party, I do want you to understand like what is genuinely at stake and what's scary for our environment. And I don't think any of us want to see that.
Well said, Jasmine. Well said. I see everyone starting to introduce themselves in the chat. Like we said in the beginning, if you didn't hear it before, we want you to interact. Please click on the links that we put into here, such as the LCV scorecard, so you can see what Jasmine was just talking about. Some of us are conscious shoppers, where we buy things because they're more sustainable or eco-friendly, or we boycott places because we don't agree with them. You have to be a conscious voter as well. And if environmental values matter to you, check out as it should for everyone, and even spread this around to those who don't seem to factor that into their vote. But we have this environmental scorecard here that lets you know what politicians are making decisions that are helping the environment and all of the benefits that come with that. So, as we said before, we're going to be asking some pretty cool questions here today. As I ask questions, I would love our audience members to also answer in the chat, okay? So if you're listening to this right now and you have your hands available, please in the chat write answers to the following questions that I'm going, or to the questions that I'm going to ask now. So I gave our speakers a list of questions beforehand, and they are getting like totally blindsided, ask these questions right now, like a surprise round of questions. So what I'm gonna do is ask a question, and each of them will take turns answering like we did before. I'm gonna try to do quick answers. So first thing off the top of your head, if you need a second to think, it's okay. If you want to interrupt each other, you can keep on your mic, whatever you do. Audience, get ready to answer in the chat. So, what is the biggest, most annoying myth about climate activists or climate change that you want to squash? Go.
that young people don't know anything. I feel like so much of the time people are just like, "Oh, you're so," and for context, I'm 26. I have no problem saying my age, but I feel like a lot of the time, like, you're in these conversations, and I guess like we come off like super experienced, and not even just me, but everyone on this panel. Like, I am with superstars right now. Like, I am with celebrities, but I feel like a lot of the time, and you probably all can relate to this, people are so shocked of like how much experience you had in such little time. So they're like, "Oh, you're young," or like, "You're so inexperienced," and I don't know, it just comes off very backhanded. So it just comes off as if like, oh yeah, like they expected you not to know anything. So I think a lot of time, like young people just go through that. I never thought of ageism for us. Like I always thought ageism would go for older people. So
I'm gonna just continue. I'm gonna just continue because that's my whole thing. But ageism, um, it's youth washing. That's what I call it because I watch it and experience it, but I more so watch other people that we're putting into this space go through that, right? That young people don't know. Let's say if we're talking climate policy. What are you talking about? Young people, when I go around the state, when I talk to high schoolers and college students, they all have a climate story where their basement have flooded, where they sat without power for days on end, where they helped neighbors. And we almost think that's not a part of these people's minds, that this occurred to them and this is how they've been developing, right? So, in that sense, yes, they have a good understanding of climate change. But climate change and climate organizing is activism. Young people are better at activism than any 45, 55, 65, 75-year-old, maybe if you're in the Senate, 85-year-old. Right now, young people know how to communicate online to people well because they do it to their friends on FaceTime when they're explaining something. When Jazz is giving us her stories, breaking something down. And that is what breaks through right now, and that is what is missing. Legacy groups are playing catch up, and you are the information and knowledge and know-how. And not only that, maybe you know how to use Squarespace. Maybe you know how to use certain types of technology that require a link, okay? A Google Doc per se. You can do these things at a more efficient pace and are oftentimes more grounded in the real world than others. That was no slight to anyone, but boy, oh boy, do I feel that all the time. It's my big thing. So, Rihanna, take it from me.
I don't even know how to follow all of that up because just plus one to it all, like, yeah, I think this has definitely been, I feel like my whole gripe with like youth organizing. I don't know how much longer I'll be part of the whole like youth organizing camp because like I'm also nearing 30. So I'm like, how much longer can I ride this out? I don't know. But I'm gonna ride with it because everyone still thinks I'm in high school anyway. So like, let's just do it. But I think like the one thing that I always remind people about is like intergenerational organizing is so important. And I think even more so for all the work that we're doing in the climate space, like there's so many people who like whose shoulders that we stand on and do this work. Like we don't have to follow right the same footsteps of them. Like I think there's things that, you know, we can take and learn. And like Ben is saying, like we can adapt. We have so many skills that we can really just completely rethink the way that we're organizing, the way that we're reaching people, the way that we're even developing campaigns and, you know, what those skills look like. But I will say, you know, young people, like we've always been at the forefront of every movement. And yet we are the last voting bloc to ever be, you know, focused on. No one really thinks about the power that we have when it comes to the economy. Like Gen Z, we hold so much economic power. We hold so much power politically. Like I wish more people took us seriously, and I wish that we took ourselves more seriously, and really understanding like just how much power we hold. So yeah, I think like breaking all of that down would be great. And then the other thing I think about climate myths is that we have to rely on essentially like green capitalism, right? To like get us out of where the climate mess that we're in right now. And I really wish that we would kind of move away from some of that a little bit and understand that like there are so many like nature-based solutions, right, is like the new fancy term, but really solutions that are rooted in indigenous knowledge, things that have protected our environment for so long, that like we don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? Like we don't need to gentrify climate solutions that we know work. Like our indigenous ancestors and folks who are still here today in New Jersey who are doing everything it takes to protect the environment, even out on Long Island. If you're not aware of the Shinnecock, they're amazing. They're doing great work, especially with kelp farming. Like so much amazing work that's happening. So, and even here in Jersey, we have so many folks, whether it's in North Jersey with the Ramapo or down in South Jersey with the Nanticoke or, across the Delaware, we have so many folks who are still here in indigenous communities that have this knowledge, have this wisdom. Like we need to release ourselves from green capitalism and like really be rooted in the solutions we know work and that have protected our environment for generations. So yeah, I wish we would just like do away with all of that and get back to like what really matters at the core of it.
That was beautiful. I just shed a tear, guys. That was so beautiful. And honestly, I think it really shows a necessity for people of other generations to listen to young people and for young people to listen to the lessons and what could be done better from the older generations. Like it takes this like this cohesion and like working together. And it's really, really great that we have so many people who are like younger, who are willing to learn from the past to figure out how to make things better. Real quick, I just wanted to share some of my myths that really bother me, and I'm sure you guys will agree with this as well. Windmills don't cause cancer. Okay, thank you very much. Doing nothing is not better, and not voting is not better. Like saying that you're not part of the system and saying that it'll figure out itself out is not gonna work. Um, and another one is windmills don't kill whales. I feel like there's a few other ones that I got here, but we're gonna keep going from that. But if you guys have any other ones that bother you, please feel free to put it in the chat. Quick one, real quick. What is the most radical idea that's really not so radical that you think will actually be mainstream in 10 years? This might be kind of a tough one. But to give you guys a second to think about it. So the question is, what's the most radical idea now that's not going to be radical? I think it's going to be the concept of using vehicles that are not powered by gasoline. So like electric vehicles, but also we're seeing like biogas becoming more of a thing, where maybe not here in the US, but in other countries, they're starting to turn waste into fuel. I would love to see that. What's something that's radical now that you think in 10 years will be more normalized? Plastic gasoline in the chat.
Making polluters pay. Um, for some reason, it is some radical belief, and right now, which it's not. I mean, most of the organizations here believe in it, so I will say that it's not. But we're going to see the exponential increase of the effects of the climate crisis just battering the New Jersey. We are the second highest warming state in the nation. And that is going to have extreme effects. I mean, you guys didn't really feel like we got a lot of fall. Everything's coming down really fast. That's because it was desperately hot during the summer and we have a drought, right? We're starting to see these ecological things happen, and there's going to get a point when our floods, our hurricanes, our random events are going to get so extreme that we're really going to be broke, right? and to do the things that Rebuild by Design wants to do, to make sure we protect environmental justice communities, and to do this across the state like LCV does, we're going to need to find a sustainable revenue raising measure. And I think young people are down with making polluters pay. So that's the vibe. That's my thought.
I think I yes, plus one to that. And I don't know, maybe it's like really radical right now, but like the whole idea of like 15-minute cities, walkability, like I just want to be able to like ride a bike somewhere. Like I live in South Jersey. South Jersey is always going to be my home, but like I'm so far from everything. Like, can we have, sustainable development that like fosters walkability and it's not so like transit oriented, like always needing, a car to get everywhere, even like a bus and a train, like that's cool. And I'm totally down for that. Like I will hop on a train in a minute, but like let me get my exercise in and go get my groceries. So yeah, I feel like that's really radical right now, but would love to see like a little, Amsterdam-y type of South Jersey. If that's even possible. I don't know. But like, yeah.
Yeah. Wait, Jasmine, before you respond, can I just say that I also grew up in South Jersey, and it's a universal experience walking to Wawa on the side of a super dangerous highway with no sidewalk, risking your life just for a hoagie, and then walking back with your friends because there's nothing better to do. People experience that in like everywhere even in cities we have trouble with mobility, but yeah, South Jersey has to get their stuff together with transportation. Sorry, Jasmine, go ahead.
Isn't Morristown the Switzerland of South Jersey? Am I missing something? I'm just kidding.
Moors?
Yeah, I'm like, no
Or
comment on that because
Nashville.
like Morristown is cool, but
Yeah, Morristown is cool. I would not say that it's a Switzerland. I mean, like in terms of compared to Switzerland, Haddonfield's pretty connected. Collingswood, that area. Anything along the Patco line, I guess.
Hey, if they can say Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania, if they're recently visiting there as the Switzerland, you can say anything as the Switzerland.
So I do want to say if you see me switching backgrounds, I do want to say it is my county's dinner tonight, and funny enough, our gubernatorial candidate came in, so I think she's like doing a press a press statement right now. So I was like, oh, let me get out. But again, make sure you go vote November 4th. A radical idea that I think that would be normalized. I want to say every local municipality
Oh
a
wait, you're
stormwater
freezing up.
utility. Now, so yeah, I feel like, oh no, am I back?
Yes, say it one more time. Sorry.
Sorry about that. I think my radical idea, I would say, every local municipality having a stormwater utility. That actually works.
Yes. For those of you who don't know what a stormwater utility is, if you may have not heard of it, stormwater describes the water that flows through a city or an area after rain or flooding, and it goes through our sewers, sometimes our sewer systems, into combined overflows through our drains back out to rivers. And in Jersey City, for example, I learned while living there that we have like Jersey City has the most amount of combined sewer overflows that are outdated. And so every time it floods, you're walking around in it, you're basically walking around in sometimes sewage mixed with rainwater. So people deserve better. Like, where are our taxes going? I'd like to know that. Um, and Jasmine, if you need to, yeah, if you need to mute or do what you got to do, no worries. I'm gonna hit us with another question. I'm gonna try to do one that's not too complicated because I got a lot of really good ones. All right. Can you tell us one time that you pushed back on a decision maker and actually like changed their mind? Or is that one too much? That might be. We've got a lot. You know what? That's a complicated
Yeah, should
question.
we just say their names out loud? No.
Kyler.
No, I mean, look, like um and everyone can turn off their mics and interrupt me while I'm saying. But like I think that like someone who's been a really great person who's like thinking through politics in a really tough district is one of those that Jazz mentioned, Andrea Katz, right? Like she's being targeted pretty heavily by forces beyond and when misinformation is spread against policies that we're fighting for, and that becomes really prevalent, like it's hard as a decision maker to, like put yourself in between that, especially in like the tightest of tightest elections. And, I'm really grateful that she's like stepped out for Superfund. And like those that, big oil spreads their misinformation. But like and that's tough conversations, right? But I mean, I would say the thing going on in Evesham is the perfect example of that. 20-year-olds going to a Pinelands Commission that doesn't have any staff to do any of this stuff, and councils that don't want to hear from them, and making an impact like with enough grounding and basis. I think any of us can do that. So, all right, I left some room for you guys. Come on now.
You don't have to name anyone directly, but yeah, what's one success that you found when you were challenged?
Not directly related to my work with the Alliance, but some organizing that I was doing with the New Jersey Public Interest Research Group before, like when I was on campus at Rutgers. No one in specific, but at the federal level, we just did some really good lobbying and organizing around higher education affordability, which was really fun, and like just connecting that back to like the importance of like student autonomy and our voices being heard, and working on like social and environmental campaigns and what that looks like, in the higher education space. So yeah, I think it really is like finding your allies, because and on a particular issue, because I will say like the folks that we might talk to, even with environmental justice items, like we might not talk to them again for a minute. um so yeah, not to like name names, there's still people that we talk to even on the state level, for EJ stuff, and that's how we have our EJ law, and we're doing great work there. But it's some trying times, we bump heads with people. But yeah, I think it really is like figuring out who your ally is on particular issues. You might not be allies on everything, but wherever you can find that wiggle room of like support to like work together, bridge gaps to advance a particular issue, whether that's like environmental or social or whatever. Like, yeah, I think very broad answer, because I don't want to call anyone out either way. But yeah, definitely like building allyship where possible.
All right, as you can see, I'm back inside. So for me, I think I would have to say the cost of our utility prices. A lot of people are blaming so many different external factors, and it's just been like a process. And I don't even think I could specifically call out everyone, because I think everyone is, like I was saying in the beginning, unfortunately, elected officials are very, very disconnected. And not even just from the environmental standpoint, but I think they're just disconnected in general. A lot of the time, again, they get money, right? They run, you count on your base, and then they kind of seem to forget where they come from. Not all of them, maybe some of them are, I'm not gonna be shady, but I think a lot of the time what I have been finding, especially just like, I'm sure all of you have seen it, which is one of Mikey's biggest talking points about making like a freeze on her first day of like taking office. And I think it's been a struggle just getting people to understand, especially just in urban areas, like, hey, this is why your utility prices is like rising. It's not because of like, X, Y, and Z. But that has been a challenge. And I think like a lot of the time, people are misinformed. And I think it kind of goes the same thing with offshore wind. And a lot of people don't know offshore wind would have actually been the cheaper option for us now, but they think that it's killing whales. So that's neither here or there, but that's where I'm at.
Thanks, guys. Now we have about 6 minutes left. And so I'm going to ask you some questions, and you just give me like one word, two-word answers, very, very short answers. And people who are listening, write your answers in the chat as well. What is your favorite green space to go to in New Jersey? Very lighthearted compared to the last question.
There's so many places, but for like quick rapid response, I would say the place I've been going to most recently is Smithville Park down here in South Jersey, just because it's so nice and I love like the floating bridge and everything. So yeah, that's been like my little go-to.
Agreed. I'm gonna hit it with my like first place that I connected with like the environment. And I attribute it here is to getting here is Alair State Park in Monmouth County. I would like playing like the skunk cabbage and like just pull stuff up. And I think that's really important for kids.
I think for me, my favorite hiking spot, Southbound Reservation in well, it's located in like three different municipalities. I'm going to say South Orange and Livingston, which is right in my county in Essex. I love to hike there all the time, especially during the summer.
Cool. And as people continue to populate the chat with their favorite green spaces, I would love to know for the three of you, who are your favorite climate, like name a favorite climate scientist, leader, or influencer that you follow or that you like. I'll go first. I love Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Hilla Earth from New York City. She's really good on Instagram.
Yeah, she's the one who dresses up as the planet and does like songs
She do
about
be
the
Earth.
environment.
Yeah.
Hill of the Earth.
I'm thinking there's so many. For a while, I was really loving Dr. Ayana Elizabeth Johnson. She's a marine biologist, but she has a really good book on like what if we get it right. So yeah, I don't know. I kind of follow like a bunch of people though. So I think I like too many people.
I think for me, I'd probably go with Wawa Gutera. She's actually a really young Black woman climate activist. I follow her work all over. She's the creator of Black Girl Environmentalists. So I'm such a big fan of her. Also, I mean, I would also even say this panel. I look up to all of you. So
Oh my God, I feel the same way about you guys.
Can I take one of these questions from the chat?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think as an environmentalist, it's really important to expose ourselves to a lot, right? The environment is everything. If we do not touch upon what's happening in the world worldwide and like understanding what other countries are doing and steps that intergovernmental organizations are taking, but also understanding like the wide variety of components that make up an environmentalist, right? Like having to focus on what's happening on healthcare, having to focus on what's happening with infrastructure and the building trades, and having to focus on just it's just a million different things, food security and just like housing, and it's you have to have your finger on the pulse to get it right. And I think that there is no one political agenda that works. I think we maybe in words have skewed ourselves in this, but I think all of us come up against many obstacles from Democrat, Republican, socialist, Green Party, independent, libertarian. I could go on and on, right? I think there's really important, like, it needs to be a really important understanding that, like, the environment rises above the political spectrum. Not to say that progressive policies that actually do something are not the way to go, but progressive, is not conservative, right? Like we're conserving the environment, right? So there are these things that like are intertwined, and I absolutely think that's correct that you are making some of those connections there.
Yeah. I just dropped into the chat a few influencers that we mentioned that I follow, and Oriana, Ben, and Jasmine, if want to drop them in the chat as well for people to follow, please do. Ben makes a really great point. Right now, the people who are here today are here because we care about the environment. And I think that people who get involved in environmental activism or climate activism are much less inclined to play teams than they are to choose what's right. A lot of us care about scientific review, peer review, making sure that the data and the information that we use is checked and debated upon and assured that it is clear and logical. Our generation is really focused, I think, on logical environmental activism and progression. We understand that there is a certain amount of like pragmatism and realism that we have to have, but we also dream and we know that innovation is possible, and making all of these different achievements within the environmental community are possible if we work together, especially in a bipartisan way. So just yeah, so just to follow up to that question and to second your answer, Ben. We are coming to an end now. I really, at the end of the day, we had so many questions. I would love to just ask one more question to our speakers here. And if you were not able to get your question answered today, please send me an email at info@rebuildbydesign.org. But it seems like a lot of folks had their questions answered. We talked about companies that we can identify for in the chat, someone's asking about um, can we help identify some companies that have better track records in terms of human rights when it comes to obtaining materials for renewable energy? Yeah, that's a big concern, right? Like, how are we going to properly source our renewable energy materials? Do any of the three of you have an answer to that one before we get going? Any companies that you know of that are sourcing sustainably for their products? That's a tough one. And that's
It's a
actually a
tough
really good.
one because I don't want to put a name out because a lot of the sustainable products that are made, especially that are commercially available to people, are pseudo greenwashing what it means to be a sustainable product. You look at the laundry detergent aisle, there looks to be cartons made out of cardboard or paper material, but when you open that up, it's a plastic bag inside. I think that's a lot of what we see from corporations, but I do know, like, my sister works for, um, when I say the word gas, I mean air for hospitals, company, and they've been working really hard to like reduce how much their plant uh, admits and follow sustainable practices that are because they're a global company that they have to follow United Nations stuff. So I think there's a lot of companies going in the right direction, but I think spaces like Climate Week show us that there's a million that just want to show up and table like they are McKinsey Consulting Group or something like that.
Yeah, just to like really quick plus one to that, I did put a link in the chat for this really good resource called Hoodwinked in the Hot House, which is a resource that we use. Yeah, it's a like nice little bot to it. Like we are in the hot house, that is Earth, and we are being hoodwinked by all of these like false solutions to addressing climate change. So kind of like what you were hitting on, Ben. So this doesn't have like a particular company or anything like that in here that it calls out in like terms of doing necessarily like the right thing to a T, because that's very hard to find, but it does at least provide some insight into different climate solutions that are being proposed, especially right now, and how we should just be aware of the fact that like these are not the actual solutions that we might want to see to climate change. So don't be hoodwinked in the hot house. So this is just a good resource in case you're looking for like guidance on what to be aware of.
I feel like I was still thinking about it. I don't know in good faith if Honey Pot, which is one of a menstrual product, I want to say they're sustainable. Don't quote me if they're not.
That's okay. Wait, this is perfect because this shows why transparency is so important for
Yeah.
environmental reasons, for health reasons, legal,
Yep.
all of that. We need the first line of defense for a sustainable future is holding these companies accountable, these polluters accountable, making
Mhm.
sure that the products that we create are cyclic and have an ending thought to them. We know what we're going to do with the waste, And I had a third one, and it was going to sound really cool. And working together. It's really um, overall, at the end of the day, we really can't have a better system without working together as a global community, since environmentalism is a global issue that spans and crosses borders. If we don't have international conversations that talk about labor and businesses doing work overseas, it's going to be really hard to address human rights and environmental rights from sourcing things like iPhones. There is a number of human rights violations happening in mining facilities, for example, in other countries. And many American businesses take advantage of reduced worker rights in other countries. And that's why we have the United Nations and other groups to have these international conversations. So we have some amazing people in the chat plugging in different groups. This is what this was for. Please stay in touch with us. Sign up for our newsletters. Check out New Jersey League of Conservation Voters, New Jersey Environmental Justice Alliance, and Climate Revolution New Jersey Climate Revolution Action Network New Jersey in order to get involved. You guys are amazing. I see we have, oh, I thought someone just raised their hand. If not, that is okay. So, thank you all so much for coming. I'm going to stay on for like another second if anyone has any further questions. But I think that we are good. And yeah, and thank you all so much for spending your evening with us. If you want, you can scan this QR code to go to our webpage and learn more about all of the initiatives that Rebuild by Design is doing in New Jersey. You can also look at your own state and address and look up your information for your community. Thank you guys so much. This was amazing. I appreciate you all so much.
Shout out to Hannah.
No,
Yes,
shout out to you
thank you for
guys.
bringing us all together. These are my
Yes.
three favorite people.